Kelly Clarkson has to pay $200,000 a month to her ex-husband. What the actual F? I'm going to be breaking it all down in this video, so stay tuned. Hi, I'm Rebecca Zung, and let's talk about Kelly Clarkson and her $200,000 a month support bill. Everybody's going crazy about the fact that she has to pay all this money to her ex. So let's break down what actually is going on here. Okay, so apparently they filed for divorce in 2020. She filed for divorce from her husband, Brendan Blackstock. I just want to make sure I have his name exactly right. Brandon Blackstock, I guess it is, after 7 years of marriage. And apparently it's a temporary amount that she has to pay. It's $150,000 in temporary alimony and $45,601 in temporary child support. And so combined, I guess it's almost $200,000. And I guess Twitter is going absolutely nuts about this, saying, what is going on? How come this double standard? Why is it so much? Well, okay, here's the thing. First of all, there is a huge difference between, law and justice. The law is agnostic. And, I do have a whole video on the difference between law and justice, and especially divorce law and divorce justice. And you can definitely check out my video on that. It's called This is True Justice. And if you want to watch that, you can go back and watch that after this. But, and because fair is definitely a different concept for all people, and fair isn't like applied in the court system. When you get to the court system applies the law, and one of the things that the law doesn't look at is gender for the most part. I mean, in the old days it looked at gender when it came to custody. The court is really even kind of moving away from looking at gender when it comes to custody, by the way. I mean, it's really moving much more toward a 50-50 sort of a thing when it comes to custody too. So, which a lot of moms aren't so happy about, but that's how it's going. I mean, and alimony is one of those things that was really sort of a gender-based concept. So let's talk about where alimony came from. There was this whole notion of something called coverture. And, these are old time words, but basically, in the old days, there was this whole way that our society was set up where the man went out and made the money and the women stayed home and they took care of the children and the family and the home. And the women's contribution was that, and the man's contribution was taking care of the financial piece. And because the women didn't own property and they didn't go out and, they weren't able to take care of themselves financially, there was no way for themselves to have any means of supporting themselves. So alimony was a creation to take care of them if somehow their husbands divorced them. And that's why, they had to be able to prove fault and all this other stuff, to get out of these relationships. And, that's how this whole divorce law thing was all created. And so as women started to work, which, by the way, like it wasn't even until like 50 years ago that women were even allowed to apply for mortgages. I mean, my mom was a real estate broker, and she said it wasn't even until like the early 70s that a woman could be on the mortgage unless she was a nurse or a teacher. So the law has shifted quite a bit. I mean, even when I first started practicing law in like the late 90s, early 2000s, there was still this whole concept of the tender years presumption, where the women would get the children, and it was presumed that the women would get the children. And then that all went away. And now it's kind of presumed a lot in a lot of states for 50-50. So things have changed quite a bit. So now we've got, shifting to this Kelly Clarkson thing, where, okay, everybody wanted equality, which is great. But it's agnostic. She's clearly the moneyed spouse. She's making the money. So, and usually on a temporary basis, they just want to maintain status quo in most states. And so whatever was going on during the marriage, that's what they want to maintain, just so that they can figure out what they need to figure out, take stock of the assets and liabilities and the income and all of that, so that they can come to a conclusion on what needs to be done going forward on a permanent basis in the case. So, and child support is usually a guideline, or is a guideline. Alimony very often is a guideline, especially in California. It's, from what I understand, is also a guideline, or at least a lot of times they look at guidelines as well as lifestyle and things like that. So, they take into account a lot of different things in a lot of different states. So it doesn't necessarily mean that that's what it's going to be long term. I mean, a lot of people are like, how is she paying when she also has the kids? Sometimes it doesn't necessarily matter, because sometimes, depending on what state you're living in, it's what amount of time you have, and it's also income. So you could have the kids a lot more of the time, but if you still make a lot more money, you're still paying to the other side. I know it doesn't necessarily make sense, but as I said, when the law is applied, it doesn't take fairness into account. It's just the way the law was written. So that's probably what's going on. I would love to know, what your thoughts are on this. Should it be equal? Should girls pay alimony too? Comment below. Should it be equal as far as time sharing? Should the kids be spending 50-50 at each parent's house? What are you thinking about this whole shift on everything being equal and everything being completely fair and agnostic and not looking at gender? Some people like it, some people don't. There's a huge firestorm about this whole Kelly Clarkson thing going on Twitter, and I'd love to know what your thoughts are. So comment below. If you guys are negotiating, as always, please feel free to grab my Crush My Negotiation prep worksheet at winmynegotiation.com. And if you want support, you are certainly welcome to join me in my free private Facebook group, Narcissist Negotiators with Rebecca Zung. And if you like this video, give it a like, give it a share, drop me that comment. Would love to know your thoughts. And feel free to subscribe to this channel for more tips and tricks on how to negotiate with narcissists and all things negotiation. And I'm Rebecca Zung, and I'm so glad you're here. Remember that today is always a great day to start negotiating your best life in all areas. And I will see you in the next video.